Today we're going to talk about how we can explain product to our mom and stakeholders. In the world there are many situations. You can draw on your thing, please, the situation. And then there in the situation we always have a beautiful, nicely grown person. Usually the people we think about when we make products, they are not completely content with their lives. They have some type of goal to achieve in that situation. If this person goes towards the goal, oftentimes they can only go a certain way. And what we do, we give this person some type of technology that makes them better able to reach their goal. I want to give you a little bit of context, like why I came to this, and we will also play a little bit because there are some more tricky or interesting points that we need to explain in UX design in the product world. And why would one have the audacity to gather an audience and be like, yes, you need to spend time with my one funny drawing. Hi. Thanks for being so many, all of you. That's exciting. My name is Tim, and as I said in the pitch before, today we're going to talk about how we can explain product, or also the nice kind of mysterious term of value, to our mom and stakeholders. So you all have a Post-it, and you all hopefully have a pen. If not, fight with your neighbor over their pen. It will work out. I thought since we have a blackboard, it's a nice thing, so you can draw a picture together with me. Say, let's start with, in the world there are many situations. You can draw on your thing, please, the situation. This is a situation. This is the stage where everything happens now. Please draw it on your. Yeah, same thing. You can just draw with me, but I want you to do it with your own hand. Okay. And then there in the situation, we always have a beautiful, nicely grown person. You can add the person, please, to your situation. On the right of the on the left of the situation, do it a little bit like I do. Cool. Yeah, some people are still drawing. Very nice, very nice. The draw along session. So in some way or the other, usually the people we think about when we make products, they are not completely content with their lives. They have some type of goal to achieve in that situation. No? When you think about in every life, and if it's only, oh, I want to be comfortable, I want to be entertained, I want to like get my job done, I want to deliver a presentation, I have some type of goal. No? Cool? Fantastic. So if this person goes towards the goal, oftentimes they can only go a certain way. And what we do, we give this person some type of technology that makes them better able. Please draw a bigger thing here. That makes them better able to reach their goal. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. This was basically, you have it in yourself, even in your muscle memory. This is basically the story how I explain to my students, and we maybe can take this away to my students or to people who work with me in workshops and facilitation, how it's roughly working. What we are doing, we need to provide some type of value to the customer. And I want to go today in a little bit more detail. This was the one picture that works well for me in explaining it. And I want to give you a little bit of context, like why I came to this. And we will also play a little bit because there are some more tricky or interesting points that we need to explain in UX design in the product world. that can actually come out of this idea. What I'm usually talking about with people, this is kind of what's on my flag, this is my tagline, is doing new things together. It's not necessarily about products, it can be processes, it can be change, it can be how do we solve our problems, but today we're talking about doing product as a focus, because we all have these different fields, right? Like with organizational design, with like strategic stuff, and we're going to talk focus a lot on the product. So I want to share a little bit this product value model. Yeah, working title, very stupid one, very bland. I want to share this with you on an idea or to whom it may concern. I've done like the last 2 years very intense teaching and training in the area of UX and product, and I'm always very insistent on this particular way of solving problems, because if I know this with clarity, then the whole design process afterwards is easy. Very much, but not exclusively, also the field of requirement engineering. If some of you are still aware that this exists, I think that's also a little bit like Flash. It's on the way out. Yeah, and I've been doing this stuff for a while, and I'm talking for this for a while. Why would you even get to the idea to make something like this, and why would one have the audacity to gather an audience and be like, yes, you need to spend time with my one funny drawing? I found it also like you can go out there and talk to established companies with C-level people, and still nobody can tell you what is the product or what is the value. There's a big discussion, and sometimes we figure it out, but there is no real basis. There are some funky methods, we'll get to the methods later, that are already available, but it's usually kind of confusing and kind of wishy-washy. And then we say, because we don't quite understand it, we say, oh, it's complex. Now this happens a lot. People are actually confused and they say, oh yeah, this is a complex topic. Well, sometimes yes, sometimes not so much. We have sometimes the problems even within the same company. One product company, the design team has a different idea than the IT department what the product actually is, and they cannot agree. It's really funny. I've had this, I've seen it. Also the literature, I'm kind of doing a lot of university stuff. I know the same frameworks that you're all using all day. We're kind of all centered around the same stuff. There's no good explanation of what we're actually doing. It's just all like kind of like some metrics or some ideas, but everything is complicated. And I also believe that's a little bit, I also smell it when I hear all the sessions, where there's at least a part of the sessions are about we need these higher level competencies. We need to get back. We are not rescued by the craft. Yeah? Knowing a design system using Figma is not going to get you your job anymore. We all know that. So I do think, since design and development are both largely automated now, or will be in the future, like it's very foreseeable, I believe that also here some of us will have the chance to kind of just level up their game, but I believe the people who will survive the job market will be the people who can still focus on this value providing activities and not so much in the weeds of the small, component stuff. This will probably go away, in my opinion. So we do this in a way, of course, retroactively. I never formulated them in start of the design process. This is just how I solve my own problem. But I need something to clarify this role of technology and product really fast, because I have students who only do 12-week courses sometimes, and they need to get it in the first 2 weeks. Otherwise, they will never make a valuable design project. It will be a catastrophe. I want to somewhat demystify this value for the customer. At least I want to make an offering where it's like, okay, this is my form, this works for me. Maybe you have another one. Maybe you adapt it for yourself. I'm just trying to share this here. I need this quick explanation. What I'm trying these days, I want to create not frameworks that go divergent, that give me a lot of stuff. I'm trying to make things in a very convergent manner where it's like, okay, if I can give you one or two precise ideas that you actually remember, this can sometimes be much more powerful and much more easily transferred than if I have, I don't know, the big canvases with the 15 tables, all these, like UX designers are really great at making shitty frameworks, no offense. Like maybe you've done it. I've done really bad frameworks in my life. And like just improvising and being like, no, back to the drawing board after 2 days because I was just lost. So we're trying not to get lost. We're actually trying to work against it. So we can support both, in my case, often novice, but also like novice in the sense of cross-functional people that are coming together as in a product practice. I still find it funny that we are sitting here at UXCamp and maybe somewhere else there's a developer conference and we don't yet have, there's kind of a product management community, but we don't have a strong product community, which is actually quite funny and maybe something we could address in the future because I think there's more relevance in product than we sometimes admit or than we see. I'm, of course, completely selflessly sharing what works for me. On the other hand, of course, I'm very interested in your feedback at the end. And all the stuff that I do is trying at the end to help you and us and everyone to do new things together more successfully, whatever these may be. I'm also trying to be explicitly open to all the new possibilities that we will have in the next 10, 20 years. So we need this higher level understanding and higher level understanding that is shared between us in order to keep up with the space, with the speed in the world. We just need to simplify at some point because my brain cannot hold all this stuff. Speaking of holding all that stuff, for the full nerds along us, and some of the literature that I really like and that has somehow gone into this model, of course, the fantastic human-centered design process. I still love to bore people with it because it's very good, it works. The general idea of jobs to be done is in here. This is where the user goal comes in so precisely, where it's like, okay, people need to get something done. We need to bridge this gap to people's actual jobs. So that is very strong. Christensen of 0 to 1, and then Ulrich and Karlbach have different approaches. The user need statement is a classic that also inspires a lot of this. The business model value proposition canvas from business design, of course, like value proposition tries to do a similar thing, but I think it fails in the form that it doesn't look like progress. If you look at both the strategizer models, they always work against each other. There's the customer on one side and there's the business, and then they clash in the middle. But it doesn't have a shared direction. It's not directional. There's no understanding in the metaphor. That is in otherwise fantastic work. All the respect to Alexander Osterwalder for starting this. BJ Fogg behavior model, also one for the nerds. Behavior is a product of trigger, motivation, and ability. Usually we try to increase the ability to make behavior more likely. Great model, I love it. And lastly, a classic. No, it is not going out, but the classic head tip, Marshall McLuhan media theory from the 70s, 80s. And he said the medium is the message, where he said, roughly, don't look at the program on the TV. Don't talk about that. Talk about how the TV lets us see in different times and different places in the world. So this is also, together with the other ones, this is also strongly about this idea of value. It's a lot in a short time. But again, also for the nerds, now you have a rough idea. We can also, I am happy to answer questions. So from that, what would I want to take you through? These are going to be spotlights, stuff of certain things that I've worked with. It's not necessarily complete. It's all in a version 0. It's not completely incomplete. I've been redrawing these charts in different moments again and again. Now they are rather stable, but especially at the start, the product value model, I think for me personally, It goes down quite smoothly. This is the one that we've just drawn. I will give you some extra words for the components, but this is the one thing. And then we can discuss a couple of things like what does research have to do with it? What does user testing to do with it? How does it look in strategic design? The more up we are, the more sure I am that it's valuable. And down here, it becomes really experimental and rough because it's just a matter of working something out like this over time. I'm not even trying to have all the answers anymore. We can iterate, right? I'm perfectly happy with doing half the thing and calling it an MVP. Cool. So far, any questions, or have I properly talked you against the wall already? Some people are still smiling, thumbs up. Okay, so I'll just keep going. Oh yeah, and I'm some minutes in already. The exercise made some time. So the product value model, or how I explain the product practice. We have seen this before. I will tell you the same story a little bit again, but now with slides. So somewhere in the world, there is a person and they want to reach a goal. Now, if you look at jobs to be done theory, the goals are functional, social, emotional. This is usually like 3 things that work quite well. People can take some action towards their goal, but quite often, if we just do it on our own without any help, there is often a gap to the goal. So one thing is we have to reach the goal at all. Then we have to reach the goal maybe not as slow as with our bare hands, maybe better than we could do it, or maybe less complicated. So the gap is too slow, not to quality, not easy enough, roughly. Yeah, we can discuss about all the words, but I want you to get to the essence. So we give people a product. We give people things, information, and capabilities in what way ever. We put something in the way of people. Then they have this increased ability with our technology. They can reach their goal. So they have an increase in ability. Usually they can do whatever they did before, faster, better, and more easily than before. This is what I think, to the best of my abilities, this is what we usually think of when we talk about value. We have to create value for the customer. Yes, the customer has to do something faster, better, and more easily than without what we are offering. If that seems too simple, I think that is exactly the beauty in it, that it's there. And again, this is something, right? Like sometimes I put elements in. If you want to honor the heritage of the user-centered design process, then of course, and this is also true, but it's unequally relevant depending on the situation, you also have a context. You all know what that means roughly. We have some new starters. So for the new starters, the context, sometimes we just have somebody, let's say, but even that's the difference if I use an app on a couch or at an office desk. And if I use the app, or not even an app, but if I use a product outdoors when there is no mobile connections, is also like context matters. The rough model, to give you a bit of another idea, what can you kind of pack in? For me, I can pack in here on the user side. Yes, of course, I have to figure this person out, their ideas, their natural capabilities, maybe even their motivation. Where are they coming from? What gets them to put in this action part to the product to actually reap the benefit? Because if the action doesn't happen, you can also have no product. Yeah, that's a little bit in the direction of the interaction design. And the user goal would be functional, emotional, social, also to just get ourselves out of the functional goals. I believe still are often 80% of my work, at least. In other, if you're doing luxury goods, then the emotional, social aspects are much, much higher, and the functional stuff is much more behind. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I call the product value model for now. The user uses our product to reach their goals faster, better, and more easily. This is the one thing that I always, in practice for a long time, without having the model, and now also let's say over the last years, a good like at least 200 students that took this to understand, okay, yeah, that's what we want to do, and having this as a clear point of reference, the one touch point. This was always helpful to structure our conversations also across different areas. Like when there was like serious debate, the question was always, hey, wait, we're trying to make somebody do whatever they're doing, like faster, better, or at all. Like what do we need? Like what do we need to plug in there? Here comes then the next part. Yeah, so research and creativity. What we usually like, also another thing, like what are we trying? What can we do with this framework? It's quite funny because this is a nice bubble. Like in most of the contexts and for most of the projects, if you want to ask your people, like how do we come up with ideas? This is what we research: the user, the context, and the user goal. We only design the part in the middle that often clears a lot of confusion already. Because then it's like, okay, we don't need necessarily like the product brief. We only need to know where we are looking, what we are looking at. And then once we've identified the gap, we can design for that easy. Also something like once I drew this like this, I'm like, oh, funny shape, but it's if you want to explain somebody the idea of testing, you might get into this situation as a UX professional at some point. This comes in quite handy. Now, this is all good and nice. This is also like, this is the classical user perspective. Now the question is, where are you even in this picture? In a very simplified form, and I've added this slide because 2 days ago, a student of mine, when I showed this, she was like, now I understand it. I wasn't even so sure. So our job as the product people, as the designers, we have to know that we are putting a thing into the way of people, like just, you know, these in computer games, they sometimes have these patches where it's like you step on the patch and then you suddenly speed up. This is kind of what we're trying to do. This is all we're doing. We're helping people to do what they already want to do, mostly, or what they have to want to do because they are employed. We'll get later to that also. It's so simple. Is it even worth presenting? Or I hope it does something for you. Still, some people are smiling, so I'm hoping for the best. Let me explain the topic of evaluation to you. Like we are a 5-year-old, yeah. So a similar thing, yeah. A little bit different on the chart. Yeah. Now it's a tester and a prototype. It's maybe not the finished product. Simple as that. Tester, context, user goal. This is our scenario. And then we prompt the person to please go towards the goal with the prototype, and we figure out what actually happens. If you've done your homework with the clear goals and clear context, you also have a very easy time to sync and to synchronize with stakeholders and to be like, what are we even putting? What are the tasks for the usability test, the requirements, like they say in the human-centered design process? But we never do it like this. Yeah? We're not that clear often about it. This helps my students. There's a couple of outcomes. Yeah, if it doesn't work, then fair enough. At least I learned something. Then sometimes in the early prototypes, it happens like this, yeah, because we are good designers. People reach their goals, but they have some problems. Ideally, I want to smooth the whole thing out. This is the idealized outcome, right? Where people have like the happy flow, where it's like click, 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 enter your email, click, 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 success. This is this. Yes, you can also build such happy flows in practice, but it takes a lot of this to get here over time. One of the, I've fought with this wording for a long time. Yeah, strategic design, a lot of different perspectives of what that would be. Let's say, I think the best definition currently is like, okay, it's somehow design in business. I think this pattern is a fractal. I can also see how a business, if I use that as an entity, uses their business functions, the people they employ, the units, the positions that they put together to get this competitive advantage that they can reach some type of goal faster, better, and more easily than either before or anybody else. I might be wrong, but it's roughly the same pattern. Yeah, we can also discuss this. And then if I'm, for instance, working in a B2B context and I take this pattern seriously, then I see that one is happening inside the other. And depending where you are in your career, sometimes you really have to figure out, like, people make great user and user goals, but they find not the buyer because they are not aligning the user goals on it. They're not focusing on the user goals that have something to do with the business goals of the original buyer. It's a little bit more, and yes, there are triangles within triangles, but I still feel like this is why it's like at the end it becomes more playful. But for me, the pattern also still here goes a long way. I'm not saying that these goals are one-dimensional. No, there is a lot of discussion to be discussed, but there are not so many points in the picture anymore to be discussed. So instead of a big, complicated framework, maybe we have the ability to get a clear shared understanding and then just have a discussion as normal adult people to be like, okay, how do we work into this? So how do we work into this situation? How does product creation work? We have looked at this guy. So help people do what they want to do, but we can, of course, make it a little bigger. Then it looks maybe like this. This is a picture. It's not reality, but the pictures kind of like work together. And suddenly I have my whole team working from a very open, the parts are not done yet up here. From a very open way of exploring and aligning, planning. Are these the right words? I don't know, but you get the idea. Until at some point, somebody has to, like, code the stuff, release it in order to really get it into the hands of the customer. And only here it happens that there is some value created. I had a lot of fights with developers because they are somewhere here and they have done my job. And I'm like, but where's the product? Like, nobody can use it. Oh, it's like on the GitHub, upload it. Yeah. Here we need it. This is where I'm getting emotional, but it's quite funny. It's like definition of done for the whole team is when it's actually released. Everything else is not value. Everything else is entertainment. Value chains, we are putting things into the hands of the users. And what are we doing? We are using the same because we have this whole thing of tools, things, information, and capabilities, even personal skills that you've built over time that you are using to get the product in the hand of the user in some way faster, better, and more easily than you would otherwise. Think about deployment, think about even just sharing your research, like the whole zoo of products that you are using. Some of them also custom built that you are using to create the product or some type of result. Again, we're not, it's a little more fuzzy than the start, but I think it goes well because sometimes if you think about management and how we build teams, it's usually you have one side that builds the product and the other half has to build the tool chain and the organization around the product. You never build a product. You also help your colleagues do your job, and some of the colleagues actually get their working results in front of the customer. But the problem solution that we need internally as externally, how we build our products, how we build our processes, how we relate to each other, right? Like when the meetings are, like all this type of stuff. In my world, and I've practiced this for a long time on really big projects, it's the same thing. I only need, in my opinion, like one mindset to solve a whole bunch of problems, and that gives me personally the possibility to forget about the complicated frameworks at the time and figure out what actually the content here is. Because that's at the end, that's important, and that's not necessarily written down in a table. Yeah, no offense to people with the table. That's also important to keep it together. If I do this in my head, that doesn't really work. But I think this fundamental idea, this also helps always and again to figure out what are we, like even for the people working on it, where will you result, like play into the other results? I need to know this. And people don't always, like people assume a fuck ton of stuff. Very nice chart, but not necessarily sure. The good thing is if it's people that you work with, you can actually talk to them. But many of us don't. Often it's the IT department which gives us some type of thing to use as a tool, and we can be happy with it or not. But generally, we could do a both-way communication to actually figure out what we need, how we have to do it. From the people, usually there's a line here on the chart, like very slight gray, because this is exterior, this is outside, of course, your organization. So here you only get insights. Usually we don't have the same line of communication as we have to team members or people in the organization. Is this always real? No, there are silos in this world. Does this work when you apply it? Yes, very much. And you can also make it a little bit simpler. This is kind of the last hint that is in there, yeah, and a hat tip to Simon Wardley and the Wardley Mapping community, where we can think also about value chains and ask ourselves which are the pieces that are actually making up the product that produces the value in the end. Now it gets to the point where I'm myself like, oh, it was so nice. And yes, we can make it infinitely complicated now. That's why this is the second to last slide or so. Somebody is also building the components for the other. So sometimes I build something like this. Still knowing where your end result ends up and what components you exactly need for that. Usually knowing one or two more steps inside the value chains in all directions is very good. It's for your business because up there are your user and your client needs. It's good if you have it as just as a design team in relationship to your stakeholder, that you know what the second, third order use is. Same for your user. So you have to understand a little bit this endless mountain of goals and sub-goals. Having said that, disclaimer, not my thing. I think a general rule, all models are wrong. Yeah, every model leaves something out of reality. Yeah, we always have to say we talk about this and not about that. But some are useful. I hope this was interesting. I've actually, including the exercise, I'm still quite well on time. And as a last reminder, this is the product value model. Yeah? The user uses a product to reach their goal faster, better, and more easily. That's where in my opinion, in this model, the value is. If you use the big QR code, you can just get the slides, the most important ones. If you want to use it, please tell me that you do, not because of copyright, because I'm really interested what you're using it for. Share it also with your friends. Explain it to your mom if you like. See if it works. Yeah? See if this is enough information for you to get it across. Change the words if you need to. Okay, I mean, change everything if you need to. If you want a bunny here at the end, put a bunny.